some of the things that we in metal call mainstream, everybody else looks at that. Number one, I've never heard of them. Number two, that's just screaming. I don't even know what that is.
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Shannon of Eight.Fold.Path. How are you doing?
I am doing well, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Happy Friday. Happy Bandcamp Friday as we're recording this.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
A big fan. I saw on your socials on Twitter that you were donating a portion of your proceeds to Ukraine relief, which I know I appreciate, and everyone else too, as well as those people. So good job. I'm so glad to have music to chat about and musicians to talk about art with, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
the world is on fire and it is not
Yeah.
fine.
No, it is not fine. That's exactly it.
It is not fine. The last couple of years have not been fine. This war is
Right.
not okay.
No.
A lot of people are suffering. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're well, your associates, anybody you collaborate with, your family. I hope you're good because it's just been a wreck.
Yeah. We've all been very lucky and very privileged. So no complaints there. Nothing to complain about at all. Hope the same is for you.
Yeah, hanging in there, trying to make the best.
Oh
It's,
yeah. Yeah. That's
you
exactly
know,
it.
we're all a couple of steps away from like Castaway and yelling at a soccer
That's
ball
true.
with a face painted on it.
Yeah.
We're all
So
just,
some days is less than a couple steps for sure.
yeah, the whole world is gone through like a psychotic break the last couple of years across many levels. And
Mm-hmm.
interestingly enough, I didn't realize what area of the country you were from. I have many
Mm-hmm.
friends in that region. I am a huge fan of North Carolina, especially the
Cool.
eastern part of the state,
Uh-huh.
and many transplants from where I'm originally from, the East Coast. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
band and a lot of killer music comes out of there. So I know Eightfold Path is really your solo vision and your
Mm-hmm.
project. You were the author.
Mm-hmm.
You do everything. You've been putting out some killer metal tracks the last few years. Your latest single, Fear, came out in
Mm-hmm.
February. And before we sort of unpack that track and everything associated, give me
Mm-hmm.
the origin story of Shannon. How did you get started and interested in music? How did, have you played in other bands, or is this just kind of this is your tool to put your music out there?
Oh man. Well, according to my parents, I was beating the proverbial beating on pots and pans as a kid. Um, Never really thought about it. It was always something. Always listened to music. Wasn't really paying attention. But just the older I got, the more into it I got. And when I was in high school, I discovered first Rush and then Ozzy, and then it was just all, you know, heavier and heavier from there. So yeah, the very typical bands in high school. Um, Went to college for music actually. Took a little detour into music education, which was one of those things where you're glad you did it, but you're also glad when you stopped doing it because it really wasn't the right thing anymore. So just always been something that was either on the forefront or in the back. And so I finally decided that it was the only thing that ever made me happy. It's like I can do whatever. There's lots of things that I can do, but the only thing that ever really makes me happy is making music. So about what, three, no, I guess it's been 5 years ago when I really decided it's like, if I don't try to, if I don't put this in the forefront, then I'm going to be miserable the rest of my life and I'm going to die with regrets. And I'm not cool with that. So then it's been just like little steps building up and up. Always been in other bands as well, local bands, just to kind of fill up my time because one is not enough. But it's the heart and soul is where is in Eightfold Path, where it's like I get to get my own stuff out and talk about, not only do the music that I'm into, but also talk about the topics that are important to me. So.
Awesome, awesome. Your choice of weapons are very curious and interesting. You got 7 and 8 string guitars.
Hmm.
So, of course, that makes me think of certain kinds of bands. But what are, you mentioned a few of your early influences in terms of just
Hmm.
guitar playing strictly. Who are your influences? Who are your major influences?
Uh, I know it's really weird because I know the people that I love to listen to the most, and then when I sit down and play, none of that comes out because I can't play like them. But especially with the extended range instruments, super big into Periphery and Animals as Leaders. Um, Uh, Huge fan of, and this probably does show up in my music from time to time. A huge fan of the Contortionists. Just love them to death, and that whole genre is a big thing for me. But if it's a aggressive and metal and catchy in some way, then it's always going to catch my ear. And so even classic metalcore is a big thing. In fact, Fear was influenced by me listening to a whole bunch of Killswitch Engage. That's kind of where it
And
got
there it
started.
yeah, and there it is. That sounds like it makes a lot of sense. I also heard when you were talking about some of the genty progressive bands in there. I
Mm-hmm.
thought about Scale the Summit is another
Mm-hmm.
band if you
Mm-hmm.
know those guys. I think
Oh
some of the
yeah.
guitar work reminds me of that. So yeah, killer stuff, man, killer, and
Yeah.
makes a
Thank
lot
you.
of sense. It's a not everybody can pull it off, and Fear, the latest track is killer, but like I said, I said offline, I went back and I
Mm-hmm.
listened to some of these other tracks, sort of put you on a path here, heading in a direction for sure, whatever that is
I
next.
appreciate
And
that.
yeah, yeah. Also, just I appreciate you. Fear tackles several very important topics. Mental health
Mm-hmm.
is can't after the last couple of years we certainly can't discount it anymore about how
Right.
important and respected it needs to be. It's still stigmatized, and I even
Mm-hmm.
think I had this discussion with some other artist a while back, and we were talking about trying to create like a platform around talking about this more, which is just like the
Mm-hmm.
metal rock and roll lifestyle crazy person
Mm-hmm.
makes people discount when metal and rock artists actually talk about mental health issues.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Somehow, like maybe
Yep.
your scene is less serious as opposed to, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
if a pop star is always talking about, the more lighter things in life, and then they come out with a very dark song, people are like, oh, what are they
Right.
going through? Let's
Right.
stop and pause and appreciate them. And i'm not
Exactly.
i'm not taking this opportunity to dump on pop music. I like a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
but just because of Ozzy and Dio and Lemmy and
Mm-hmm.
everybody, ACDC, Metallica, Dave Mustaine, the list goes on. Chili Peppers, whoever you like. That idea that like the hard partying crazy, oh, they're just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching the Pam and Tommy series on Hulu
Mm.
out of curiosity, and
Mm-hmm.
they're really caricaturing up Tommy Lee. I'm sure he's wacko. He was probably banana balls in the 80s and 90s, but he's
No
also like
doubt.
probably not the person they're making him out to be
Right.
completely, and because
Right.
it's a dramatization. But like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about like, oh, I'm having problems, oh well, they're just crazy, and then you got suicides
Right.
and accidental deaths and other kinds,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't really see all the underlying things. And
Exactly.
mental health affects your physical health, your emotional well-being, all the things,
Everything.
everything. So I appreciate you. That was a very long-winded way to go around saying I appreciate you talking about it, talking about your experiences through song, because it's vulnerable, and it's danger, it's not dangerous, but it's like it's could create
It's
more anxiety and more stress to just do it.
right. It can be scary for sure. Yeah. But it's that old saw about, write what you know. And it's, whenever I struggle with lyrics, it's like, well, what do I know? Well, I know what goes on in my head better than anything else. And so that's what tends to come out in a yeah, I'm not the kind of guy that could sit down and write a story song about someone else. It just, it's cool that other people can do that, but it just doesn't come out with me. But when I write about that stuff, I can actually write something.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, I'm no stranger to my own issues. I've had anxiety most of my life, and not
Mm-hmm.
depression is bad, thankfully, sometimes, but mostly anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole world is anxiety inducing this last
Oh
couple
my
of years,
God.
and even right
Yeah.
now. And I don't even think a lot of this last couple of generations remembers, like, I'm not trying to be that like get off my lawn back in the day, because
Right.
sometimes I do that as a musical guy, but
Right.
also the 80s was like legitimate. We thought we were going to get nuked every day for 10
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Even after
Mm-hmm.
Gorbachev left off, Soviet Union
Right.
collapsed, we still were like not sure what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
At least here, and I'm sad that it's back that way again, where they're back to being not allies, because that sucks.
Mm.
And I don't think the people support anything going on over there, really, mostly, it seems like. And,
Yep.
this is just sad. All the way around, people are dying. It blows. But
Yeah, it
we
does.
got to power through. We got to find our way forward
Mm-hmm.
somehow. I do often say sometimes like it's gonna work itself out. Like it's gonna just it'll be. You'll find a way to cope or not, but like you'll get through it. That's what I
Hmm.
tell myself. This song, Fear, seems like, I will not fear. It's a mantra to yourself and to anyone else who
Absolutely.
can
Yep.
relate, which is really killer. It's really
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.
Hopefully the song is making you feel better, that other people are responding hopefully similar to me. It's the same thing I said to somebody else earlier in the week. Like, it's like sad and angry and anguished music just makes me feel better. The gloomier and darker the better,
Hmm.
because I just enjoy it. But it does. I think there was definitely a report last year out of the UK that said people who enjoy like harsh music are happier.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Right.
hey, we get all those emotions hopefully,
Exactly.
cleansed,
Yep.
ringed out.
Catharsis.
Yeah,
Right.
we need that catharsis.
Absolutely.
It's so hard. But so you've been working on these tracks, releasing tracks here and there.
Hmm.
And Fear is the latest. When you and obviously you're apparently a guitar player first, but so when I imagine when you sit down to compose, guitar is what comes out of you first, right?
Usually, yeah. Ironically, I think of myself as a drummer. That's where, if I've ever played in a band, it's been drums. I've never played guitar in a band.
Okay.
Um, but so I definitely think rhythmically. But yeah, all the songs start on guitar. It'd just be noodling and go, oh, that's cool. And then something comes out of that. Or like with Fear, it was listening to, like I said, Killswitch Engage so much, it was like, I just got to write something like that, and then it came right out. But yeah, I love guitar. I probably didn't. I only started playing guitar like 2 years after drums. It's always been for me, and so, but yeah, it would be impossible to choose. Let's just put it that way.
Right on. Well, you're a killer guitar player. You got me fooled. I was like, oh, this guy must be some virtuoso guitar player. But I also sense that, like, in a similar way, that's, maybe not like full on prog, but like you did mention some progressive bands, and you mentioned Killswitch, who I love. Those guys are much more talented than the music. That's not all the music they're capable of making. Any of those guys,
Mm-hmm.
but I think about like a band like Testament in their sort of more
Mm-hmm.
recent stuff can occasionally be proggy, and I think that was
Mm-hmm.
partially Eric and Gene, who's left the band with Gene Hoglan. But I
Mm-hmm.
hear some of that. I was getting some Testament vibes too from Fear and some of the rhythm parts before the breakdown toward the end, which is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And I love
Yep.
that. It's like a super heavy hardcore punch it out breakdown, but
Yeah.
there's like a little that like vibe right up until that breakdown is like very recent era Testament in the best paid possible way.
Thank you. Wow, that's definitely high praise. Yeah, and it's funny that I went into it thinking metalcore, but yeah, listening back to it after I was like getting things finished, it was like, well, I definitely hear all the Metallica and the Slayer and my early all the thrash stuff that I grew up on. So
Nice.
definitely came out in there for sure.
And of course, like I know that like there's an audience for just kind of the riff salad, right? I'm the air guitaring.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna air guitar. I've been listening to this song and your stuff on Spotify for like the last couple hours. I'm just gonna air guitar a little, but compelled to. But I think it's interesting that obviously there's fans who relate to just kind of the onslaught of riffs and notes, but actually to be able to put that into a song and have it still feel hooky and catchy like a song is important. Some of
Hmm.
that is your vocals and the ability to write a chorus, and some of that is just like, oh, this is a driving beat type of thing until it grinds to a throwdown.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I like the thing that I've always been attracted to is songs. Even like the crazy prog stuff. Like another of my current favorite bands is Black Crown Initiate, and
Mm.
as heavy and extreme as they are, every track is a song. Even the super long ones is a song, and it's got a structure, and you can follow it, and usually there's something catchy you can sing along to, or so. And the other big influence for me was new metal of the late '90s, early 2000s. First time I heard Seven Dust, my brain exploded. And so I was just a giant Seven Dust nut for a long time. And so that always is in there. That combination that they did so well, especially back in the day of heaviness and also melody in the same song. And to me, it's like it's two great tastes that taste great together. Why not have both?
Get your peanut butter out of my chocolate, or get it in. Actually,
Right?
I'm a humongous Seven Dust fan, and they, to me, one of the best bands ever. and nobody quite does it like them. And
Mm,
one of the part of that is having an incredible singer who could do anything. And then again, their early stuff, I would have put them ahead of everybody. And it's kind of a bummer that they came out right ahead of new metal, or sort of right
right,
before new metal became super popular. So like
right.
new metal was still kind of a growing phenomenon. Seven
Hmm.
Dust kind of hit. They were even a little before it, because I think they had a song on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack
Yep,
before the debut Seven Dust record. They
yep.
used to be known as Crawl Space. And
Hmm.
then they kind of rebranded as Seven Dust to put out their record on TVT, who royally screwed them.
Oh,
And
yeah,
which is
yeah.
why we'll never like get a Seven Dust OG album on vinyl. But
Right.
those first couple of Seven Dust records, they're really more closer to Pantera and Metallica than Korn
Hmm.
or Limp
Hmm.
Bizkit. But just for whatever
Yep.
reason, they came out in that time,
Hmm.
and it was like them and Limp Bizkit and Deftones for a while, and Cold
Hmm.
Chamber,
Right.
and any even bands that like Static X has nothing to do with new metal much, but they're
Right.
like they're new metal. It's like, are they,
Right.
or are they industrial?
Exactly.
Because which is
Right.
fine. I love that stuff, but also like they're
Hmm.
not. And it's okay to not be new metal. And then it was
Hmm.
funny that like, new metal was like a dirty word for a long time. Like these bands aren't any good because they're
Hmm.
different than whatever we've been listening to for 10 or
Right.
15 years. So I
Right.
was like, music's just good. Music is good music. A song's a song.
Exactly.
I understand if it's not for you. I get it.
Right.
If it's not for you, I understand. And I'm telling you have to like it. No, you can. It's good that you don't like stuff,
Hmm.
and it's good that you like what you like, but at the same time it's like, don't throw them away also because they're not for you.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. I
So
don't like it is different than that's bad. These are
right.
not the same things.
And that, I imagine, as a music educator, you run into that all the time. When that's a problem, the students and the teachers, and getting things across.
Yeah, it's been quite a while since I was in the school system. But yeah, I mean that's always a thing. It was the stuff that I tend to like and the stuff that I tend to express myself with is just never going to be mainstream. As far as some of the things that we in metal call mainstream, everybody else looks at that. Number one, I've never heard of them. Number two, that's just screaming. I don't even know what that is. Uh, so and that's cool. That's perfectly fine. And the stuff I like I said, is never going to be mainstream, and that's okay because that kind of has its own kind of vibe and cachet, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Right. I just to jump back for a second to Fear, I also wanted to mention that there's a shout out in your press materials about Dune, which I'm a humongous fan, and I definitely caught the kind of the correlation there between the song material and topics
Mhm.
and Dune. And I was wondering if that was Dune the book, the first Dune movie, the David Lynch Dune, the current Dune movie, any of that. Like, where does that sort of fall in?
The answer to that is yes, all of the above. But yeah, no, my dad introduced me to Dune when I was young, and so yeah, and of course, growing up with anxiety and stuff, the just knowing that somebody else out there thought about that enough. Who knows what Frank Herbert's life was like, but thought about it enough in a character term that he came up with this entire um, you know mantra, for lack of a better term, that was just so perfect. And it's one of those things that, just like any kind of material that strikes you, it just comes back up in my head every few years. It's like, oh yeah, Dune. And then it sounds so cliched again, but I had actually started the song and the lyrics before I even knew a new Dune movie was going to come out. It's just, it's like I wanted to write something about fear and anxiety, and there was that the thing from Dune, and so it was like, yeah, that's perfect. And then it was like, oh, the movie came out, and my song's not ready. I can't release it yet. And I was like killing myself because it's like, maybe I should go ahead and put it out. No, it's not done. It's not done. So it would have been cool to release it around the same time, but don't know how much difference that would have made.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I'm also a big Dune fan. I saw the Lynch movie. It was like
Mm-hmm,
actually
mm-hmm.
the first David Lynch anything I had ever seen, which is also
Right.
like
Same.
either great or problematic, depending
Right.
on how much of a film student or aficionado you are. But I love David
Mm-hmm.
Lynch in general. Went on to love all his stuff.
Yep.
And then I read the book, and then I was excited that the new movies were coming out. I wish the studio had let them do the back to back, because I think by the time we get the
Yeah.
second movie, I love this recent one. I
Hmm.
went in knowing what movie I was getting, so I know
Right.
that people were
Exactly.
like, "That's the end. It doesn't have an ending," because it's not over. Because
Right.
it should have been it's not meant to be another movie, and I wish they had
Mhm.
trusted. I don't know, one of the greatest filmmakers ever, Billy. I'm going to butcher his name because I can't say name words, but
But I know who you mean. Yes.
yeah. I apologize, everybody out there. Anyway, so Billy Deneuve, but they should have trusted him to
Hmm.
make both movies back to back, which is what his vision was. Because by the time he goes
Yes.
back to make the sequel, everybody's going to age up,
Yeah.
and which is that's okay. I don't care, but like I do care
Hmm.
a little bit.
Right.
But I thought it was brilliant for what it was, and like a lot of people don't realize that like George Lucas heavily cribbed Dune, the book for
Oh
Star
God. Yeah.
Wars,
Yep.
heavily cribbed
Yep.
Dune, like the Force and weapons and
Hmm.
spice and
The
sand,
stormtroopers. Yeah. I
stormtroopers,
mean.
the
Yep.
crate dragons, even like
Yep.
actually I feel like some of the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, spoiler alert, I feel like some of those stories are like sort of like winking back at Dune now,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is interesting. There's a light spoiler for you all, but yeah, just kind of wild stuff. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm also a huge fan and obviously a huge nerd. So yeah, that's good
Same.
good topics, good stuff to pull from, and
Hmm.
ultimately, however you become a storyteller, whether it's through the influence of something else to get your personal part of that story out, is great about music.
Hmm. Yeah. It's yeah. That was actually the first song that I ever kind of purposefully started from a literary reference. It's just kind of like lyrics has definitely been the last thing to kind of evolve for me. If I can't remember if they're on Spotify, but yeah, I think the first thing I actually released on Spotify was just an EP of instrumentals, and which are I like them. In fact, I keep thinking, okay, how can I go back and make those better and maybe put lyrics with them? I haven't been able to figure that out yet, but yeah, so that's been the slowest part of the process, and so experimenting with different things, like we mentioned, like getting a literary reference and starting from there, and still combining it with the message that I want to make. It was not to pat myself on the back, but I was personally happy with how it turned out for sure.
Yeah, well, pat yourself on the back. I'll pat you on the back, man. You did a great job.
Thank you.
I was wondering. I saw also that you have kind of a production arm, and I was wondering if that just covers yourself, or if you looking to work with other bands, or in the future maybe working with other bands, or maybe opening a studio. But I
Hmm.
saw you promoting that a little bit too.
Yeah, the more I've gotten into, I started recording myself because it was the easiest and cheapest way to do it. And it's like, okay, I can just do it at home. The technology is there. I don't have to, I can afford to do this. And then over time, I found that I enjoy that whole process so much. The songwriting and the performing and the recording is all the same thing to me, as far as I'm concerned. And so the more I've gotten into it, and progressively gotten better over time, yeah, the more that I've been. It was for this year I decided, what, I really want to start into it. I'm definitely not like where anybody's going to be seeking me out just yet, but definitely at an entry level building phase. The band that I play drums in, they wanted to record, and I was like, we are not spending money. We are not hiring a studio. We can do everything. Everybody's got good computers. We've got good mics. We've got good instruments. We've got a room. This is how we're going to do it. And so it's a very slow process with that, because everybody has day jobs, but but that's been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot through that. And so, yeah, I'm going to start putting that on the forefront, especially now that this song is out and I've got more kind of in production on the way. And so that's going to be a thing where I start offering to people, just to get my foot in the water, foot in the door, toe in the water, however you say it, and see how I can help other people, because there's a ton of folks who are in a situation just like mine. It's like, well, we can't afford to be full-time musicians. We would love to, but that's just not the reality, and don't have a ton of disposable income. And so it's if I can offer some basic production services, mixing, mastering, whatever, recording, you name it, for folks at an affordable rate where it's like, or shoot, I've even done it as a basically barter system, done it in trade where done stuff for people and they've done artwork for me, and things like that, and I get more of a kick out of that than trying to come up with, oh well, let me come up with a pay scale and all of that stuff. And it's like, what, let's just do it, let's have fun with it. And if I get to a point where somebody comes up and says I want to give you money, I'm not going to tell them no, but I know that I'm not there yet, and that's okay. And because I'm just enjoying the hell out of it, and I want to keep it that way.
There
I
you
want to keep
go.
enjoying it.
There you go. That's important. The barter system is fine, man. That's a good society when you can
Mhm.
trade with people and
Exactly.
feel mutually satisfied. Just as we start to wind this down, what is next for you? Do you have more music on the way? Do you envision another single this year or next? What do you think is going to happen next for you?
Oh, definitely more music on the way, no question. My goals, I think, were a little. I set them a little high, but that's okay. I don't think I'll get things out as quickly as I had originally hoped. But yes, multiple singles this year for sure. That's kind of what my plan was going in, not worrying about EPs or albums or anything like that, because those take forever, and then it's a whole thing that somebody has to commit to listening to or not commit to listening to, as the case may be. So a single is so much easier to do, so much easier for people to listen. They can just go find it wherever, listen to it, boom, done. And if they want to listen to it again, great. If they don't, well, they haven't lost but 3 minutes of their life. So, but yeah, definitely more of that. And yep, got one that's about halfway there, so it shouldn't be too much longer, honestly.
All right, awesome to hear, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and our viewers and listeners. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you in this track, and I wish you the best of success. Stay safe. We'll be paying attention to you and see. We'll take great interest in what you do next, as Emperor Palpatine said about Anakin Skywalker. We'll watch you with great interest. Thank you, my
All
friend,
right.
and have a good evening and a good weekend. And thanks for hanging out with Ghost Cult.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much for having me.